Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric, another episode of Retro Revamp Rewind, where I take a look at some of the earliest videos I've done on my channel and we revisit them. And yes, I made you watch that entire intro. When I did it, people said it was way too long, and that's probably true, but I spent an inordinate amount of time and energy making it, so you have to watch it one more time. Before we get too far involved though with Castlevania Chronicles, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like, subscribe, and that notification bell definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down there as well. But Castlevania Chronicles is an absolutely amazing game, and it is the cheapest way to play a physical copy of Akamajo Dracula that was released on the Sharp X68000. That, if you don't know, is a Japanese exclusive PC that was very expensive back in the day and has only exploded in price now. I'd love an X68000 for my hardware collection, but I am not spending the type of money that it requires to buy one, which is seemingly now in excess of $2,000. And if you wanted a physical copy of Castlevania Chronicles or Akamajo Dracula for the X68000, you're probably getting closer to $3,000. So playing Castlevania Chronicles is the best way to experience this game, and this game is absolutely incredible. It is basically, in essence, a full remake of the original Castlevania for the Nintendo Entertainment System, but clearly you can tell that everything has been highly enhanced, and it feels in some ways like a direct remake with the Bat boss on the first level, and in other ways a spiritual remake because it does expand on the game. And on the disc you get the X68000 original version as well as an arranged version. And I will say that this disc is not selling cheaply anymore. I got this game years ago for $20. I didn't look at eBay before I made this video, but I know it is blown up in price like every retro game has seemingly done in the last like 12 to 18 months. But you can definitely download this game and play it. It runs perfectly, and it's still available to buy. But you can see here, this is the NES original, except it's on steroids, and minus these little goo boogers that you have to hit, which drive me nuts because they just slow you down. There's so much parallax scrolling in the background, there's so much detail. This feels like the best version of a 16-bit Castlevania game, and I feel like it's one that not many people have played, because a lot of people watching the channel have probably played, Castlevania on the Super Nintendo, on the NES. Less people, but still probably a lot, have played Rondo of Blood on the PC Engine or one of the ports. But I feel like this game, Castlevania Chronicles, is probably one that not many people have actually checked out before, which is a bummer because it is one of my favorite 16-bit Castlevania games of all time. It has everything you want in a Castlevania game: good action, challenge, but the music. They've done a completely arranged soundtrack in this game, and they've also included a hidden option where you can select MIDI tracks from the original X68000 platform. But no matter how you slice it, the music in this game and some of the remakes of those iconic Castlevania songs are just 100% some of the best things you're ever going to hear. This is just the best example of where Castlevania was going before it ended up switching over to Symphony of the Night. And I believe, if I'm right, this actually came out after the fact. So this was right around the transitional time when Castlevania went from being just a 2D platform action game to being more of the Metroidvania style. But I will say this game puts up a ton of challenge, even on normal difficulty. If you go hard mode, it really is hard. But there's constant enemy barrages coming at you. The bosses are creative and quite difficult. And you'll see here that all of the sprite work is just huge. This bone dragon coming up basically fills the entire screen, and it just looks absolutely amazing. And like all Castlevania bosses, they're pattern based. So once you actually start practicing the game and getting better at it, you can end up beating this game without having to continue once, because it almost becomes secondary memory. But like I said, the soundtrack in this game is just absolutely spectacular, and I want to let you guys listen to about 45 seconds or a minute of it while we beat these little guys coming through the trees here. And some of the enemies are amusing too, these caterpillars. They pose no threat, you can literally just kill them, but I think they're just there for fun. But go ahead and enjoy the soundtrack for like 45 seconds. I hate flea men, they're the worst, and I'll be right back. I just absolutely love the new arranged soundtrack for Castlevania Chronicles. It's all the original NES music except it's been redone and it's kind of jazzy and bright. But if you're not into the new arranged soundtrack, you can just 100% go and switch it over to the original X68000 MIDI and have a completely different experience. And during the break of recording, I did look up the price on this and wow, it's going for like $250 on eBay now. It's getting close to the price of the X68000 original. I found a decent shaped copy of that for like $400. So maybe this is just reserved for the hardcore Castlevania collector, but this should still be available on different downloadable services, and honestly there's plenty of ways to play retro games without buying the disc these days, hint hint wink wink, that maybe if you're not in the mood to spend $250 on a complete copy, there might be other ways to play it. But however you decide to play the game, you 100% have to play this if you're a Castlevania fan and you haven't checked it out, or maybe you played it years ago and you haven't revisited it, because this is just everything I want Castlevania to be. Now I do still think Rondo of Blood is probably the best, 16-bit Castlevania game, even if maybe technically it's an 8-bit game. And there are some cheap deaths. Some things do want to kill you. You have to duck down here, because if you even touch a spike while jumping, you will die once you hit the ground. It's a kind of a delayed death, and we got our little friend here, not sure what he's supposed to be. Probably could infer what I think he might be. But this is just one of those really special games. I'm surprised that Konami decided to actually bring this to the PlayStation. I assume it didn't sell very well because there's not a ton of copies for sale, and I really don't hear it talked about that much. But it is exactly what you want a Castlevania game to be. There's a ton of levels, there's a ton of replayability, there's the original mode and the arranged mode, so it's going to give you two different ways to play. And I do love the boss battles as well. They're unique, they're interesting. Every boss has its own pattern that you can learn. Some you're going to be able to beat the first time you try to fight them. Some are going to take a lot of practice. But that's the great thing about Castlevania is it takes a long time to beat the game the first time, but then through repeated playthroughs you get a lot quicker and better at it because you start learning more about what the boss's patterns actually are, and that's always fun. And that's what I kind of miss about the 16-bit Castlevania games, is that pure action-oriented aspect of it. And don't get me wrong, I love the Metroidvania. Symphony of the Night is one of the best games I think ever made, and all the Game Boy Advance and DS games as well are also unique and amazing in their own right. But for the classic 16-bit Castlevania, I'd actually prefer to play this over Super Castlevania 4 on the Super Nintendo. I'd probably say this is my second favorite, classic Castlevania game ever made. But again, we have an awesome remake of one of the original Castlevania songs right here with Bloody Tears. So go ahead and listen for about 30 seconds because it is one of my favorite tracks in the game, and I'll come back shortly and try to convince you a little more that you need to play Castlevania Chronicles. You can't go wrong with Bloody Tears, and you can't go wrong with the remake on Castlevania Chronicles. But yeah, if you've played this game before, leave me a comment down below and tell me what you think, because I feel like I'm sure some of you have checked it out, but I feel like for the large majority of people watching this, they may have never actually played the game and probably definitely don't own a Sharp 68000. But like I said, I can't recommend Castlevania Chronicles enough. If you're a hardcore collector, it's probably worth paying the $200 to buy the disc. Now granted, I'm saying that having paid 20 years ago, but you can make that choice yourself. Short of that, if you have any questions or comments, I'll leave them down below. Do me a huge favor, go down below and hit like, subscribe, and that notification bell. I'll be back with another batch of Retro Revamp Rewind when I decide the next games I want to talk about. But pro tip, don't trade punches with Medusa if you don't have full health. I forgot I didn't. If you do, you can beat her. If you don't, you end up dying. See you guys next time. Bye-bye.